treatment. To help in this worthwhile effort, please call 810-557-5336. Also, don't forget to mark your calendars for August 6th, when the world's best classic cars gather at Meadowbrook Hall for Concours delegates. Channel 7 stands by you with a reminder of community events and services.
7 stands by you.
Stop.
Sexy surprise. 7.
Guy Gordon and Diana Lewis now together at 6 and 11 on 7.
Next on Action News Midday, the man who led Michigan through some of its most turbulent times, former Governor George Romney, has died.
This is Action News Midday, the latest news from Detroit's first news team.
George W. Romney is being remembered today as a man of character who knew what he believed in and was not afraid to say so. Good afternoon, I'm Robbie Timmons.
I'm Erik Smith. George Romney was, of course, Michigan's governor for 7 years, an era that was among the most turbulent in American history.
Romney was the patriarch of the state Republican Party. His devotion to the GOP was surpassed only by his love of God. And we have live Team 7 coverage of the passing of the man who made no apologies for his beliefs. When he considered running for governor in 1962, Romney announced he would fast and pray before making his decision. A few months later, he was governor, defeating Democrat John Swainson. No other challenger has defeated an incumbent Michigan governor until John Engler beat Blanchard. Romney was reelected in '66 and would face perhaps his toughest challenge the next year.
It's obvious that there's been looting and other damage. It was a little difficult to see it this late at night, but I'm concerned about whether or not there's enough firefighting equipment.
It was during that second year, 1967, that the Detroit riots erupted.
As governor of the state of Michigan, I do hereby officially request the immediate deployment of federal troops into Michigan.
A year later, Romney looked to Washington again, this time in hopes of being president. But he would drop out before the first primary. But that's one of his few failures. In business, he became chairman in 1954 of American Motors and turned the financially strapped company around.
We can't produce products as competitively as we used to, and the result is we're buying more imports.
Romney's most recent battles were fought from the political sidelines. 1994, he took on Senator Ted Kennedy, who ran against Romney's son, Mitt.
And the most negative campaign in the country this year was the one launched by Ted Kennedy.
And Channel 7's Mary Conway has that part of the story in this live action camera report. Mary?
Robbie, we've been out here since about 9 this morning. The ambulance crews were called out here shortly after 9. Apparently, Mr. Romney collapsed while on his treadmill. When the EMS crew workers arrived here, they were unable to revive him. It has been ruled natural causes. They believe he may have had a heart attack. He was 88. We just had the opportunity to speak with his widow, Lenore, and his 2 children who do live locally. That would be Scott and Lynn, and they say they want their father remembered as a wonderful and noble man.
I think that he was a man of God. He loved his family, and he loved the Lord. We prayed every morning, we prayed every night together. He adored his children. He said they honored him by their righteous living. He kept saying that they honor us with their righteous living. And they do. All of our children and grandchildren, we're very blessed.
He was a man of such great principle and integrity. You always knew where my father stood on things, and you always knew that he was a man that was honest in what he said and what he did and conducted his life with utmost character and integrity. and he was loyal to all of us. His love for us was really amazing.
I would love to have lived every day that I've had with him over again. And I lived with him for 64 years. We were married
for
64 years.
You always knew where Dad stood on something.
And he never told me a lie all these years. I knew if I asked him something, he would tell me the truth. It's wonderful.
Two of Romney's 4 children live locally. Mitt lives out in Massachusetts. A daughter, Jane, lives out in California. She's just had a play open, and apparently her father was out there for the opening for his birthday earlier in July. We understand he's been in good health, gave a speech as recently as last night. They said this was very sudden. He has 23 grandchildren, 33 great-grandchildren. They say he was a tremendous family man. With more on reaction to his passing, we go now to my colleague, Cheryl Choden.
Well, Mary, when you're 88 years old and you've been so prominent in this state and you have so many children and grandchildren, there will be a lot of mixed reaction. There will be a lot of reaction from all kinds of facets of society. Now, George Romney was Ronna Romney's father-in-law for 27 years. We're in West Bloomfield, near where Ronna Romney lives. And today she's very saddened by his passing, and she's remembering him, as Mary said, a very strong family man, also a very strong presence in politics. Most of all, she says, though, she does remember his long love and marriage to Lenore.
And they fell in love when she was 15, and she saved the candy boxes. And whenever there was a family gathering, he would always talk about this love for Lenore. And I did a book once on marriage, and there's a chapter in it on George Lenore, and I remember just always being so impressed by this wonderful, wonderful relationship.
Just bigger than life. That's the way I always think of George Romney. And he would stride into the room, this silver-maned man, and the room would stop. He would speak and people would listen. And his passion would carry over into an audience, and they'd walk out and they'd believe him. I guess maybe that's the other thing. People believe George Romney.
Now, people who are not family members still have high respect and praise and memories of George Romney, including members of the Detroit City Council.
I found him to be an honest, sincere, and decent man. It was not a political gesture. He actually came down to find out what caused the riot, what were some of the problems. As I said, he was a good, kind, honest, decent man. I'm so really shocked and sad to hear about his passing this morning.
I think it's a sad day when someone as dedicated to volunteerism and clean government passes on.
Now, back to Ronna Romney for a minute. A year ago, George Romney did not endorse her in the Senate race, and there was a rift. She admits that they had a rift. In fact, she hadn't spoken to him since then. And she said, though, that when she looks back, that will only be a blip on the screen of life. And she was supposed to meet with him in August just to talk about things and kind of mend their ways. And now she says she's very sorry she didn't make that meeting sooner. Reporting live in West Bloomfield, I'm Cheryl Choden. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. And George Romney is survived by his wife, 4 children, 21 grandchildren, and 33 great-grandchildren.
Of course, Mr. Romney touched many lives while he was governor of this state. Today, those who voted for him and those who voted against him are looking back on his huge legacy.
I thought he was always a dedicated individual and concerned about Michigan and its citizens, and I'm really sorry to hear that he passed away.
I think society's going to really miss him because I feel that he was a good man.
I remember the brainwash statement. Well, of course, that hit all the news media. Of course you'd remember that one. It was a very volatile statement at the time. And then changing his mind on it, too.
He was a good guy. I think more guys should be like him.
I first met George Romney as a young cub reporter about 30 years ago. He was then the charismatic governor who was being talked about as a possible GOP presidential candidate in 1968. His national stature had drawn much attention in a country that at the time was badly divided over the war in Vietnam. He went to Southeast Asia, came back, and said that he had been brainwashed by U.S. officials. Almost 10 years ago, we sat down in Mr. Romney's living room and reminisced about that fateful word.
The reason I use the term brainwash is because when I went over there in '65, Westmoreland and Lodge just simply told us things that were not true. And also McNamara, Bob McNamara, Secretary of Defense, had been saying that we were going to have the troops home as early as Christmas 1963. Well, here it was 1967, and the situation was worse than it was in 63. So the term I used was one that aptly described the misleading information we were getting from Johnson and McNamara and Westmoreland and Lodge and the whole shebang.
Ever regret it?
Oh, no. No, I don't regret it. It was accurate, it was true.
It was indeed accurate. It was true. But many political observers at the time thought that remark, brainwash, may well have cost George Romney the presidency in 1968.
Now, I think I would have raised issues that could have created great controversy. And whether I could have been able to do much about them, I don't know. If you go back and take a look at what I've been saying as far back as World War II, I've been pointing out the economic trends that have created the great problem we have as a nation now, where we're fighting for our economic future. But I've been pointing those things out, and I was talking about those things in New Hampshire. I was talking about the decline in morality in this country, which has become much more apparent since then. So I don't know, you know, one of the biggest lessons I've learned is how limited a president's power really is.
And we can only guess what might have happened had George Romney had the opportunity to serve. I had the pleasure to serve with him recently at one of his many volunteer recruiting efforts, and I told him that night that I thought he was truly one of my heroes, a great role model for all Americans, because he truly cared, and he tried to make America a better place for all of us. And I'm individually going to miss him. Robbie?
And his family also add that he died instantly and peacefully. We'll be right back.
Skin color.
Sometimes you do want to wear a sign that says, look, I'm black, deal with it.
Channel 7's Frank Turner examines racial identity. Are you black? Are you white? And what if people can't tell? Watch A Question of Color today at 5 on Action News with Robbie Timmons and Frank Turner, only on 7.
Are we getting that hiss weather again? You know, hot, steamy, scattered showers.
Hazy.
Yeah.
I was scared what you were getting at there, man. Yes, hot,
Yes.
sticky, and the afternoon showers all come together. Stuff, yeah.
Sticky stuff.
Okay. Now I understand. But we're getting kicked off the air here. Forecast for later today does have showers in it. They're not that far away. From west of Jackson on up to about Traverse City now. I'll show you the radar in a second. We're seeing some puffy white clouds build now with a temperature of 85. A heat index now is 90. The relative humidity is 61%. So with the temperature and the humidity, you add them together, not numerically, but you get a heat index, what makes it feel like 90 degrees. South winds and southwest at about 9 miles per hour. 84 officially at Metro. It is 86 at the city, 86 in Pontiac, and 85 in Brighton. Notice the rain now coming in from the west. Well, not to Traverse City, already east of there, I guess now, but from just about the middle of the thumb, just about in a line to about Gaylord, down to about Higgins Lake there in Houghton Lake, all the way down south, all the way down even I-69 toward Indianapolis. You can't see it on this map, but if I get out of the way of the other map, you will. You'll be able to see all of this moisture heading toward us, and there will be more heavier rainfall embedded in some of these showers. You can already begin to see a little bit of yellow right there. Another little bit of yellow right there in the thumb, and a couple more storms developing in Indianapolis. Now that we have the heat of the day, we will see less light rain like this light green and more of the yellow. Maybe even a little bit of orange. Could see some wind today, maybe some small hail. We are still looking at a large area of cloud cover here, and it extends all the way back down to the south, not just for us. There's Detroit. This is Michigan. We zoom out a little bit, and you can see it goes all the way down, even into the deep south. So the rain and the moisture is deep. It's thick in the atmosphere. It's coming from the Gulf of Mexico, which is warm, very warm water down there now, so the humidity is certainly here. The dew point, we talk about that sometimes, is 71, which makes it feel very sticky outside. And the high today, the high temperature all the way up to 88 degrees with a feels-like temperature around 93 to 95. The UV index, though, now that the clouds are coming in, this was higher earlier, but now that the clouds are covering it up, down to only a 6, which is in the moderate category. Here's the forecast now for this afternoon. Hot and humid, storms developing, 88. By the morning, down to 70, maybe a lingering shower around from this line of 6 showers and storms that'll build later, 70 for a low. And then tomorrow on up to 87. Not as many storms tomorrow, and a little, I should have emphasized that word, a little less humid, only 87 for a high. And then Friday, the humidity comes back, and we get more storms in there for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 90, 92, and 92. So temperature's about the same, but tomorrow I think will be the driest day of the next 5, including today. So that should get, if you have to do something in a dry weather, tomorrow would be the driest day of all.
Okay. So if you're going to paint something outside, do it tomorrow.
True. And even Saturday may be drier than Sunday if you're planning a weekend. How dry you need, yeah, when the humidity is like this high.
That's right.
Yeah, so.
Paint would never dry anyway.
Do what we can do.
Okay. Well, there are concerns about pesticides in baby food. We will show you what parents are being told to do.
And we've also got a very special Kelly's Corner coming up for you as well. We'll have a visitor. Those stories and much more as 7's Action News Midday continues.
Is that a hint?
Down, Fido. Prosecutors at the Susan Smith sentencing are close to wrapping up their case, apparently, but some legal experts are saying the tearful testimony of her ex-husband could have already sealed her fate. David Smith broke down twice during his 2 hours on the stand yesterday. At least 3 jurors and several reporters cried right along with him. David learned that Susan had drowned their 2 children during a news conference and told ABC's Barbara Walters part of him died with those boys.
Susan has changed my life for the rest of my life. She has destroyed a lot of feelings and emotions in me that I'll never be able to rebuild. It's a day that brought heartache on me that I never even knew existed, and that I pray that I'll never have to experience again.
You can see the entire interview with Mr. Smith and Barbara Walters tomorrow night on 2020. Jurors have to decide, of course, whether she will receive life in prison or the death penalty. David Smith was not asked that question on the witness stand. In a new book released today, he says he doesn't want to see her die, but if it happens, so be it, end of quote. You can see David Smith's interview 2020. That airs here on Channel 7 at 10 o'clock.
In the O.J. Simpson trial, the battle of the blood evidence rages on. FBI scientist Roger Martz has testified there was a blood preservative known as EDTA found in the blood evidence that was taken from the murder scene and also from Simpson's home. Now, EDTA is a chemical that is added to the blood samples to keep them from clotting. Well, the defense is claiming the presence of that chemical means the police may have planted Simpson's blood in order to frame him. For the latest details, watch our special capsule coverage of the Simpson case on Action News at 5, 6, and on the Action News update at 11. It is supposed to be good for the environment, but many people still consider them a pain in the neck. Those are the auto emissions tests. Well, soon they may be gone. SEMCOG, the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments, is planning to vote on Friday on ending AETs. Instead, motorists would have to use a special low-pollution gasoline during the summer months that cost a penny or 2 more a gallon. But the final decision will be up to Governor Engler.
Well, by now you may have heard all the reports about pesticides in baby food. Now the question is, what should parents do? 2 environmental groups found the pesticides in baby foods by Gerber, Heinz, and Beechnut. Fruits generally had more pesticide levels than vegetables, but the pesticides were all within federal guidelines, which were designed actually for adults.
Until pesticides have been proven safe for infants, we think that they shouldn't be in baby food at all.
We would recommend strongly that consumers and parents, but in particular, disregard this very irresponsible and speculative fear-mongering report.
So who do you believe? What do you do? The environmental groups that released the report say parents should not stop giving baby food to their children, and homemade baby food may be even worse because raw fruits and vegetables contain even more pesticides than the processed foods. For now, your best bet could be organic baby food, but that's really expensive. Robbie?
Trying to get kids to eat is
the
more difficult thing.
issue.
Yeah. Well, next on Action News, John Kelly has a very special guest.
He's a little guy that we're kind of hoping you might want to make part of your family. So stay with us when Midday returns.
Today. I'm so excited.
We're ready.
Yes.
I can take the weight here of this monster. There.
Well, aren't you sweet? Tell us about this little girl.
Her name is Rhonda. She is a purebred dachshund. She is 2 years old, and she is at the North Shelter of the Michigan Humane Society. We found out that her owners, who loved her, had to give her up because they developed allergies. This is one of the sweetest Dachsies I've ever met in my life. She's just a honey. She's pretty well collected. She's a little worried about being here.
Yeah.
She is housebroken, of course. She doesn't jump fences. She doesn't dig. She likes other dogs. She likes other cats. And as you can tell, she likes people. She's kind of a cuddler.
Yeah, I
had
can
her in
see
here
that.
before,
Oh, yeah.
yes. And I was going to give the number of the North Shelter of the Michigan Humane Society, but I don't think I'm running in.
Oh.
So you just look it up. It's up in Rochester Hills. I think it's 852-7450, but I'm not positive. Am I right or wrong? I'm right. That's the first time this year.
Do it again.
There she
Yeah,
is.
what is it again?
Thank you very much. 852-744-7420. There. 852-7420. Right. And we'll be here again next week with another little one looking for a home.
Oh, good. Well, Rhonda, you find a nice home, okay?
Hey, Chad
You're so,
likes cats,
You're
too.
so lovable.
Yeah, Chad needs a dog.
Yeah. Isn't she a sweetheart?
She's getting used to TV. I think.
Yeah.
I think we're going to keep her.
Yeah, she's wearing a pink ribbon to make sure everybody knows she's a girl. Pink lead, too.
Oh, very cute. Thanks, John. That was a lot of fun. And we'll be right back with more in just a moment.
TV. The entire cast of Friends will be here live on the next Oprah.
Oprah, weekdays at 4 on 7. Become a member of the Channel 7 Action News team. These viewer videos were shot by Channel 7 viewers throughout the area. If you shoot video of a breaking news story, call the Channel 7 Viewer Video Hotline at 827-3677. That's 827-3677. And become a member of the Channel 7 Action News team.
Frank Turner joins us from the newsroom with a preview of what we'll have for you on Action News at 5. Frank?
Thanks, Robbie. Good afternoon, everyone. Coming up at 5 o'clock, can a few sprays a day take inches off your waistline? Health reporter Denise Dodor will have that story. Also in my special report, the question of color. We'll trace the roots of prejudice and find out why scientists say race as we know it doesn't really exist. And you'll meet a pair of local screenwriters making it big out in Tinseltown and a famous couple splitting up after only a few months. That hardly ever happens. Those stories and much more at 5 o'clock. Hope to see you then.
We will indeed. Thank you, Frank. And we want to update our top story, obviously, at this noon hour. Former Michigan Governor George Romney has died at the age of 88. Emergency medical teams were called to Mr. Romney's home in Bloomfield Hills about 9:15 this morning. Family members say he simply collapsed while he was exercising on a treadmill machine. He was pronounced dead of natural causes at the age of 88. Governor Romney was considered the patriarch of the Republican Party here in the state of Michigan, a title he received after defeating Democrat John Swainson in 1962. That began a 20-year stretch of GOP governors in Michigan. We will, of course, completely detail the governor's long and successful life on Action News at 5, 6, and 11. Jim Harrington, in fact, will be back to bring a special look to a very special man in Michigan's history.
And we have many memories to share with you.
You betcha.